Hey guys, tonight we are going on a journey to a place of profound and beautiful silence. We're visiting a ghost city, but not one of sudden disaster or buried treasure. We're traveling to the city of Ani, the capital of ancient Armenia, once known as the city of 1001 churches. Our story is set in the 14th century, long after the city's golden age has passed, and we're going to witness its slow, quiet, and heartbreaking desertion. There are no jump scares here, no sudden invasions. The only ghost is the city itself, and the only sound is the wind whispering through its empty halls as it slowly forgets its own name. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps our quiet corner of the internet find other history lovers who prefer to drift off to the past. And, as always, please drop a comment to let me know what city you're in and what time it is for you. It's a wonderful ritual for me to see our global community gathering for tonight's story. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awaken not to a sound, but to the absence of it. For as long as you can remember, the mornings in I have begun with the symphony of life. The distant, rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the rumble of merchants' carts on the stone-minus paved streets, the murmur of prayers from a dozen nearby chapels, the shouts of children. But this morning, like so many mornings recently, the first thing you notice is the silence. It's a heavy, thick silence, a blanket that seems to smother the sounds before they can even be born. You lie on your woolen mattress, listening. You can hear the soft whistle of the wind as it snakes through a crack in your window shutter. You can hear the faint, frantic scratching of a mouse in the wall. You can hear the sound of your own breathing, but you cannot hear the city. Your home is a sturdy, two-story house built from the beautiful, honey-colored volcanic dove stone that gives Ani its warm, golden glow. Your family has lived here for generations, but where once this house was filled with the noise and bustle of your parents, your siblings, and their children, now there are only a few of you. The other rooms are quiet, their doors closed on empty spaces. You get up, the cool stone floor a familiar shock to your feet. You walk to the window and push open the heavy wooden shutter. The morning light streams in, cool and pale. You look out over the rooftops of Ani. It is still a breathtaking sight. The city is a forest of stone, a stunning landscape of domes, conical spires, and grand, vaulted halls, all glowing in the dawn. They call this the city of 1001 churches, and while your grandfather used to laugh and say that was a poet's exaggeration, looking out now, it feels true. Everywhere you look, another chapel or church punctuates the skyline, but the grandeur is hollow. Many of those churches are now empty, their doors barred. The smoke that rises from the city's chimneys is thinner than you remember from your childhood. There are gaps in the cityscape now, like missing teeth houses that have crumbled from neglect, their stones scavenged by the few who remain to patch their own failing walls. Your city was once the magnificent capital of the Bagratid Kingdom of Armenia. It was a vital hub on a branch of the Silk Road, a cosmopolitan metropolis whose wealth and population, some historians believe, rivaled Constantinople or Baghdad at its peak in the 11th century. Your grandfather told you stories of a city so crowded you could barely walk the main street, a place filled with merchants from Persia, Georgia, and the Byzantine Empire, their stalls overflowing with silks, spices, and precious metals. Now, the silence tells a different story, the story of a slow, painful decline. It wasn't one single event that broke Ani's spirit. There was a series of relentless blows over centuries. The Mongol invasions shifted the trade routes, starving the city of its commercial lifeblood. A devastating earthquake in the year 1319 shattered many of its grandest buildings and, more importantly, its people's morale. Subsequent raids by Turkic dynasties bled it further. The scholars of the future will debate the precise cause of Ani's final abandonment? Was it the earthquake? The loss of trade? The constant military pressure? Or was it simply that the world changed, and Duyani, a city built for a different time, was left behind? People in the few remaining wine shops murmur about it constantly, each with their own theory, their own blame. But you know the truth is simpler and more complex. It was a slow bleeding, a gradual fading of the light. From your window, you can see across the deep, dramatic gorge of the Akurian River, which forms a natural border. Carved into the cliff face opposite your magnificent stone city is another, stranger city, a vertical honeycomb of caves. This cave-minus dwelling, a troglodyte village, has been here for centuries, and it's one of ANI's oddest features. There's a persistent, though likely untrue, rumor that some of ANI's poorest residents, unable to afford even a room in a crumbling house, have begun to move back into those ancient caves. You turn away from the window. The silence presses in on you again. It is the sound of emptiness, the sound of departure. It's a quiet that asks a question you don't want to answer: who will be the next to leave? And when will it be our turn? The day is young, but the city already feels old and tired. It's time to go outside, to walk the quiet streets and see what remains of its waking life. You pull your heavy woolen cloak tighter around you and step out of the doorway. The air is thin and crisp, with a bone-minus deep chill that the morning sun has not yet managed to erase. The street before you is one of the main arteries of the city, a wide avenue paved with massive, smooth basalt stones, once polished by the passage of 1,000,000 feet and countless iron-rimmed wheels. This street used to be the heart of Ana's commerce, a river of life that flowed from the city gates to the citadel. Your grandfather's stories painted a vivid picture, a riot of color and sound, where the awnings of shops stretched out to almost touch in the middle, creating a shaded bazaar. He spoke of the smells of Persian spices, the glint of Byzantine silk, the babble of a dozen languages as merchants haggled over prices. Today, the street is a vessel of silence. The only sound is the hollow echo of your own footsteps on the stone. Most of the shops are shuttered, their heavy wooden doors bolted from the inside, covered in a thick layer of dust. You see the ghostly skeletons of market stalls, their wooden frames collapsing in on themselves. A faded, torn piece of a canvas awning flaps mournfully in the wind. A lonely, rhythmic sound against the overwhelming quiet. Weeds, stubborn and green, push their way up through the cracks between the great paving stones. The quiet, inexorable reclamation by nature. This silence is a direct consequence of a decision made far away, long ago, and his wealth was built on its strategic position on a northern branch of the Great Silk Road. The caravans that flowed through here were the city's lifeblood. But the Mongol conquests of the last century changed the world. They established new, more direct routes further north, and the river of trade that once flowed through Ani slowed to a trickle. It has now, finally, run dry. The city's heart, starved of commerce, simply stopped beating. You walk past what was once the shop of a renowned Armenian jeweler. The fine, intricate stone carvings of birds and pomegranates around the doorway are still there, a testament to the wealth and artistry that once resided within. But the windows are dark, and a fine web of cracks runs through the lintel above the door. You can almost imagine the ghost of cinnamon and cloves wafting from the spice merchant's shop next door. A scent memory so powerful, it makes the current dusty air feel even more empty. You step over a cracked paving stone and notice something that most people would overlook. Exposed beneath the stone is a section of a terracotta pipe. This is part of ANI's incredible, and now failing, subterranean infrastructure. The city had a complex network of underground channels, some made of interlocking clay pipes like this one, others carved directly into the rock. They carried fresh water to fountains and homes, and carried waste away. It was a sophisticated system that allowed a massive population to live hygienically. Now, you can see this pipe is choked with dirt and roots. The city isn't just emptying, It's slowly breaking down from the inside out, its veins and arteries hardening. Further down the street, you pass a particularly grand, two-story building. Its facade is a masterpiece of stonework, with blind arches and delicate, geometric carvings. Everyone in A&I calls it the Merchant's Palace, but no one really knows what its original purpose was. Was it a customs house, where taxes on caravan goods were collected? Was it the guild hall for the city's powerful textile merchants? Or was it simply the opulent home of a particularly wealthy trader? The question is a quiet source of debate among the old men who gather in the sun. The fact that the building's true history has been lost to living memory is another small, sad sign of the city's decline. Its past is becoming a legend even to those who still walk its streets. You see a single sign of life. An old potter, a man with a face as lined and cracked as his own earthenware, has his shop door open, but he is not selling his wares. He is simply sitting on a stool in the doorway, gazing out at the empty street, his hands resting on his knees. He is not working. He is just being a living monument in a city of stone ones. He gives you a slow, weary nod as you pass, a silent acknowledgement between two people who have chosen, for now, to remain. Your walk is not aimless. You are heading towards the city's spiritual heart, the one place that still feels like it has a soul, even if it is a wounded one. Rising above the rooftops at the end of the street, you can see its magnificent, austere form. It is a building of perfect proportions, a masterpiece of Armenian architecture that has inspired awe for centuries. You are going to the Cathedral of A&I. You arrive at the edge of the great, open space that fronts the cathedral. The building dominates the plaza, a sublime and powerful presence, even in its state of quiet neglect. This is the Cathedral of A&I, also known as Serpes de V Adzadzin, the Church of the Holy Mother of God. It is not the most ornate church in the city, but it is the most perfect. Its architect, a man named Tier Diaz, was so renowned that he was later summoned to Constantinople to repair the dome of the Hagia Sophia. That fact is a source of immense, if faded, pride for the people of A&I. The cathedral is a masterpiece of harmony and proportion. It's a rectangular basilica with a soaring, vaulted ceiling, and a central dome that seems to float effortlessly above. The exterior is made of the same warm, honey-mined, a scholared tough stone as the rest of the city, but here it is cut and fitted with a precision that is breathtaking. The walls are decorated with elegant blind arcades and slender, engaged columns, giving it a sense of rhythm and grace. It feels both immense and light, solid and ethereal, all at the same time. You walk towards the main entrance, your footsteps the only sound in the vast, empty square. A few hardy thistles grow between the paving stones. The great wooden doors, once covered in intricate bronze plating, are now bare and withered, the wood bleached gray by the sun and wind. One of the doors hangs slightly askew on its massive iron hinges. You push it open, the sound of the creaking hinge a loud groan that seems to violate the sacred silence. You step inside, and the air immediately changes. It's cool and still, carrying the faint, lingering scent of beeswax, old incense, and damp stone. A profound, almost palpable silence fills the cavernous space. Dust motes dance in the shafts of light that stream down from the high windows, illuminating the vast, empty hall. The interior is a forest of massive, clustered piers that soar upwards, branching out into pointed arches that support the vaulted ceiling. The pointed arches and clustered piers are architectural features that would not appear in the Gothic cathedrals of Western Europe for more than a century. Standing here, you are witnessing an architectural innovation that was far ahead of its time. The genius of T.R.D. Atten, the Armenian masons, is a source of constant, quiet fascination for architects and historians who still debate the flow of architectural ideas between the East and West. You walk down the central nave, your footsteps echoing in the immensity of the space. There are no pews or chairs, just a vast, open stone floor, worn smooth by the knees and feet of countless worshippers over 400 years. You look up at the central dome. It's not there anymore. The original dome collapsed during the Great Earthquake of 1319. What remains is a gaping, circular opening to the sky. Birds now nest where the image of Christ Pantocea at, or once looked down upon his flock. The sky, a brilliant, indifferent blue, has become the cathedral's new ceiling. This hole in the heart of the cathedral is a perfect, poignant symbol of Ani's own broken heart. The earthquake was more than a natural disaster. It was a spiritual blow. It shook the people's faith not just in their buildings, but in the divine protection they had always assumed was theirs. It was after the earthquake that the slow trickle of departures became a steady stream. Why stay in a city that God himself seemed to have abandoned? You run your hand along one of the massive stone piers. The stone is cool and smooth, and then your fingers find it along deep fissure, a jagged crack that runs from the floor halfway up the column. It's a scar from the earthquake, a wound that has never healed. You can trace these cracks all over the building, a fine web of trauma written in stone. They are a constant, physical reminder of the day the earth shook and the city's confidence was shattered forever. Despite the ruin, the space is not without beauty. In fact, the decay has a certain melancholy grandeur. The way the sunlight streams through the broken dome, illuminating the dust in the air, creates an atmosphere of almost mystical serenity. It is no longer a functioning church, but it has become something else, a monument to faith, to loss, and to the enduring power of beautiful design. There is a small, makeshift altar at the far end of the nave, where a few of the remaining faithful still sometimes gather. A single, faded icon of the Virgin and Child leans against the wall, its gold leaf long since peeled away. A few dried wildflowers lie in a simple clay pot before it. It is a small, defiant gesture of continued faith in a vast hall of emptiness. You stand in the center of the cathedral, directly under the open sky, and close your eyes. You can almost hear the ghost of what this place once was, the rich, resonant chanting of the choir, the sermon of the Catholicos, the murmur of 1,000 prayers rising up to the painted dome. But when you open your eyes, there is only the silence, the dust, and the wind. The great heart of Ani is broken, open to the heavens, and slowly, beautifully, turning back into stone. You leave the solemn, wounded beauty of the cathedral behind and begin to walk back towards your own neighborhood. The sun is a little higher now, its warmth beginning to seep into the stones, but it does little to dispel the chill of the city's emptiness. As you turn a corner onto the small side street where you live, you see a sight that has become all too common, a silent tableau that makes your own heart ache with a familiar, weary sadness. The Kirakosian family is leaving. They are not your immediate neighbors, but you know them well. Their house is just 3 doors down from yours. You've known old Manas since you were a boy. His wife, Suriam, always had a piece of sweet, sticky gata for you on feast days. Their son, Hausub, is your age. You learned to read your letters together in the small parish school. Now, their front door is wide open, and their meager possessions are being loaded onto a single, sad-minus-looking donkey. There is no commotion, no loud farewells. The departure is happening in a quiet, almost furtive way, as if they are embarrassed to be going, ashamed to be joining the slow exodus. Hafsep is carefully tying a rolled minus up sleeping matin, a few woolen blankets onto the donkey's back. Suran is wiping down a few clay pots into single, precious copper cooking pan, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she is trying to memorize the feel of them. Old Manas is simply standing in the doorway of his home, his hand resting on the stone frame, his gaze lost somewhere in the middle distance. He is not looking at his new life. He is saying a silent, final goodbye to his old one. You stop at a respectful distance, not wanting to intrude on their private sorrow. You know what this moment costs them. This is not a journey of ambition or opportunity. This is a journey of defeat. They are not moving to a better life. They are simply fleeing a dying one. They are going to join relatives in a small, remote village to the west, a place with no grand churches or paved streets, but a place where there is still enough farmland to scratch out a living, a place where the silence is the silence of peace, not of decay. This slow, family minus by minus family desertion is the true nature of ANI's death. It is not a city being wiped out by a single, traumatic event. It is a city dying by 1,000 small, quiet departures. A historian of the future, looking at the grand ruins, might imagine a great battle or a sudden plague, but the reality is this: the quiet closing of a door, the weary footsteps of a donkey, the decision that hope no longer lives here. The reasons for leaving are constant. Low murmur throughout the city. The taxes are too high. Some say, the raiders from the east will be back. Others whisper, there is no work for our sons, is the most common and heartbreaking refrain. You watch as Surin carefully wraps a small, carved wooden cross in a piece of cloth and tucks it into a leather pouch. It's a tiny object, but you know it's one of their most precious possessions. This raises the agonizing question that everyone who leaves must face: what do you take? And what do you leave behind? You can't carry a stone house on your back. You can't pack the memories of generations. You can only take what is most essential for survival, and what is most essential for the soul. The heavy grinding stone, the large loom, the wooden chests, all will be left behind, to be picked over by those who remain, or too slowly rot and crumble into the earth. They will become the artifacts of the future, the puzzling domestic remains that archaeologists will one day unearth, trying to piece together the story of a life from the things that were not valuable enough to carry. Hafsat sees you watching. He straightens up from his work and gives you a small, sad smile. He doesn't need to say anything. The look in his eyes says it all. It's a mixture of apology, of envy that you are staying, and of pity that you are staying. It's the complex, unspoken language of the last residents of a dying city. You know the silent etiquette of this moment. You do not try to persuade them to stay. You do not ask them why they are going. Their reasons are written on their weary faces. Instead, you walk over, and you embrace Hafsat. It's a firm, solid hug, a wordless expression of friendship and farewell. God go with you, you murmur. And with you, he replies, his voice thick with emotion. You watch as the small family group is finally ready. Old Manes takes one last look at his home, his hand tracing the familiar pattern of a small cross, carved into the stone by his own grandfather. He pulls the door shut. The sound of the bolts sliding home for the last time seems impossibly loud in the quiet street. He turns, takes the donkey's lead, and without looking back, they begin their slow walk towards the city gates. Another light in A&I has gone out. Another house has become a tomb, and the silence that remains behind is a little deeper, a little heavier than it was before. The quiet sorrow of the Kurokosian family's departure hangs in the air long after they have disappeared down the street. You feel a familiar ache in your chest, a mixture of sadness for your friends and a growing unease about your own future. To shake off the melancholy, you decide to walk to a place that has always brought you a sense of peace and wonder, a place where the city's past glory feels almost close enough to touch. You make your way towards the eastern edge of the city, towards the Church of St. Gregory of Tigran. The church is perched dramatically on the very edge of the deep gorge, its walls a silent sentinel overlooking the Akurian River far below. It's not as large or as architecturally perfect as the great cathedral, but it possesses a different kind of magic. It was built in 1215 by a wealthy and pious merchant named Tigran, a time when I was past its absolute peak but still a vibrant and important center. As you approach, you admire its exterior. It's richly decorated, a testament to the merchant's wealth. The entrance is framed by elaborate stone carvings, intertwined vines, mythical beasts, and geometric patterns that show a clear Seljuk or Islamic influence. This blending of styles is one of the things that makes ANI's art so unique. It was a city at a crossroads, and its artists and architects absorbed ideas from every culture that passed through, creating a style that was uniquely their own. The conical dome, so typical of Armenian churches, sits atop a tall, cylindrical drum, giving the church a distinctive, soaring profile against the sky. You step through the low doorway into the church's interior, and you are plunged into another world. The inside of this church is a treasure box, a kaleidoscope of color that stands in stark defiance of the muted, golden tones of the city outside. Every single inch of the interior walls, from the floor to the apex of the dome, is covered in vibrant frescoes. The air inside is cool and still, and the light is dim, filtered through the few narrow windows. As your eyes adjust, the frescoes seem to emerge from the gloom, their colors deep blues, rich ochres, and startling white still astonishingly vivid after more than a century. This is a rare and precious survival. While most of ANI's churches were probably once decorated like this, the frescoes have been lost to time, damp, and iconoclasm. Here, in the Church of Tigran Honens, the stories of the faith are still told in brilliant paint. You walk slowly, letting the narrative of the frescoes unfold around you. And when you see the story of the life of Christ the Nativity, the baptism, the crucifixion. The figures are painted in a formal, Byzantine style, their faces serene and elongated, their robes flowing with a simple, elegant grace. On another wall, you see the story of St. Gregory the Illuminator, the patron saint of Armenia, the man who brought Christianity to the kingdom in the 4th century. You see him being cast into the deep pit of Corvira, and you see his miraculous survival and his eventual conversion of the Armenian king. This is your people's story, the foundation of your identity, painted here for all to see. The frescoes are not just religious texts. They are a window into the world of 13th century ANI. The artists have included details from their own lives. In a scene depicting the city of Jerusalem, the buildings look suspiciously like the grand stone houses of ANI itself. The clothes worn by some of the secondary figures are the clothes of Armenian merchants and nobles of the period. Historians of the future will treasure these details, as they provide invaluable, if stylized, information about the material culture of your time, the textiles, the hairstyles, the architecture. What is most debated and fascinating about these frescoes is their authorship. Who painted them? The style seems to show both Byzantine and Georgian influences. Was it a team of local Armenian artists who were familiar with these other traditions? Or did the wealthy Tigran Honens hire master painters from Georgia or even Constantinople to decorate his magnificent church? The answer is lost to time, but the result is a beautiful and harmonious blend of different artistic worlds. You look up into the dome. There, surrounded by angels, is the majestic figure of Christ, his hand raised in blessing. A line of script in classical Armenian runs around the base of the dome. You can just make out the words of a prayer. You run your hand gently over a section of the plaster wall near the floor. The surface is cool and surprisingly smooth, but here and there, you can see where the plaster has begun to flake away, revealing the bare stone beneath. In one corner, a dark stain of damp is slowly creeping up the wall, blurring the face of a saint. The decay is here, too. Even this sealed, protected jewel box is not immune to the city's slow decline. The frescoes are fading, their stories slowly being silenced by time and neglect. One day, they too will be ghosts. You stand in the center of the small church, surrounded by the silent, painted company of saints and angels. For a moment, the heavy silence of the city outside is forgotten. And here, surrounded by the vibrant color and the epic stories of your faith, the glory of ANI feels real again. It is a powerful, beautiful, and fragile illusion. It's a story you tell yourself to keep the hope alive. The story painted on a crumbling wall, Leaving the painted sanctuary of the church, you find yourself drawn toward the northern part of the city, near the main gates. Here stands a building that, in its own way, tells the story of Ani's decline just as powerfully as any church. You arrive at the Great Caravanserai. It's a massive, rectangular stone structure, more fortress than inn. Its high, mostly windowless walls give it an imposing, defensive look. The single entrance is a grand, elaborately carved portal, large enough for a fully laden camel to pass through. This building was the heart of Ani's commercial life, a secure hotel and warehouse for the merchants of the Silk Road. It was here that the caravans would stop after their long journey across the Anatolian plateau, resting on Thrace, applying before continuing east towards Persia or north to Georgia. You step through the grand portal into the building's central courtyard. It's a vast, open space, now completely empty and silent. The ground is packed earth, littered with a few scattered stones and overgrown with patches of tough, dry grass. Around the courtyard runs a deep, covered arcade supported by heavy stone pillars. This is where the merchants would have unloaded their precious goods, bolts of silk, sacks of spices, chests of tea, and displayed them for sale. You can almost hear the echoes of its past life, the braying of camels, the shouting of their drivers in a dozen different languages, the clatter of coins as deals were struck. The air would have been thick with the smell of animals, exotic spices, and the cooking fires of the merchants preparing their evening meals. It would have been a chaotic, vibrant, and thrilling place, the engine room of the city's prosperity. Now, the silence is absolute. The only sound is the wind whistling through the empty arches of the arcade. You walk into the deep shade of the covered walkway. Along the back wall are the entrances to numerous small, cell-like rooms. These were the private quarters for the merchants. Simple, secure chambers where they could sleep and store their most valuable personal items. You peer into one of them. It's a small, dark, stone-vaulted space, completely bare. The air inside is stale and cool. At one end of the complex is a larger, more impressive hall. This was the stable. The long, vaulted chamber with stone troughs running along the walls for feeding and watering the animals, the camels, horses, and donkeys that were the lifeblood of the caravan trade. You can still see the dark stains on the stone floor, the ghostly imprints of 1,000 animals that once sheltered here. The very existence of such a large and sophisticated caravanserai speaks to the immense volume of trade that once flowed through Ani. Its construction was a major civic or private investment, a clear sign of the city's confidence in its commercial future. The architectural style, with its pointed arches and intricate stone muqains, stalactite-like vaulting in the main portal, shows strong Seljuk and Persian influences, another testament to the city's cosmopolitan nature. But the silence of the caravanserai today tells a story of economic collapse. The Mongol conquests of the 13th century didn't just bring destruction, they brought a fundamental reordering of the world. The new Mongol Empire, the Ilkhanate, which stretched from Persia to Anatolia, established its own secure and efficient trade routes. These new routes, favored by the Mongol rulers, bypassed Ani completely. A historian looking at a map of 14th century trade routes would see Ani as a city left on a disconnected side road, a bypass station on a railway line that has been closed. This is a concept that the people of Ani understand in a visceral, not an academic, way. Old Marnes, your neighbor who left this morning, used to be a camel driver. His father and grandfather before him worked the caravan routes, but by the time Marnes was a young man, the work had already started to dry up. He became a simple laborer, then a subsistence farmer on a small plot of land outside the city walls. His family story is the story of the caravanserai in miniature story, of a proud tradition becoming obsolete, of a livelihood vanishing into thin air. You walk to the center of the empty courtyard and look up at the sky. A single hawk circles high overhead, its lonely cry emphasizing the emptiness of the space. This building was designed for noise, for crowds, for the chaos of commerce. In its current silence, it feels profoundly, unnaturally wrong. It is a body without a soul, a heart without blood. One of the more peculiar details you notice is the graffiti. On the smooth stone walls inside the merchant cells, previous travelers have scratched names, dates, and symbols. There are names in Armenian, in Persian, in Arabic, and in Georgian. There are small, crudely carved crosses next to crescent moons. Each mark is a tiny, personal record of a single person who passed through this place, a whisper from the past. It's a fragile, human archive of the building's bustling former life. But, as you look closer, you see that the newest of these inscriptions are already decades old. No new travelers are leaving their mark. The conversation has ended. The empty caravanserai is a monument to a dead economy. It is the powerful, physical reminder that a city, no matter how grand its churches or how strong its walls, cannot survive without a purpose. ANI's purpose was to be a bridge between East and West, a hub of trade and ideas. When the world built a new bridge elsewhere, ANI was left stranded, a magnificent city on the road to nowhere. Leaving the hollow silence of the caravanserai behind, you decide it's time to perform one of the most basic and increasingly arduous tasks of your daily life: fetching water. You return to your house to collect your large clay water jugs. In your grandfather's time, this was a simple chore. The city was dotted with public fountains, fed by the sophisticated network of underground pipes, gushing with clean, fresh water. But that was then. Now, most of those fountains are dry. The intricate system of aqueducts and terracotta pipes that was the pride of ANI has fallen into disrepair. The great earthquake of 1319 fractured many of the main channels, and in the century since, there has been neither the manpower nor the money to organize the massive public works projects needed to repair them. The system is slowly dying, choking on silt and broken by the slow, inexorable pressure of the earth. So you must go to the source. Your destination is the River Gorge, a place of stark, vertical beauty and back-minus breaking labor. You join a small, silent procession of other city dwellers, mostly women and older children, all carrying their own and for asin buckets. This daily trek for water is a communal activity born of necessity. The path that leads down into the gorge is steep and treacherous. It's a narrow, winding track, little more than a goat path, that zigzags down the cliff face. The stones are loose under your feet, and you have to place each step with care. A fall here could be disastrous, not just for you, but for your precious, fragile water jugs. The descent is hard on your knees. The ascent with full, heavy jugs will be a brutal test of your strength. As you descend, the city of ANI transforms above you. From this perspective, it looks even more dramatic and imposing. A golden crown of stone perched on the edge of the world. You can see the foundations of the great walls, clinging to the very lip of the canyon. You can see the undersides of buildings that jut out over the precipice, a feat of engineering that seems to defy gravity. You finally reach the bottom of the gorge. Here, the world is completely different. The air is cooler, filled with the sound of the rushing Kurian River and the smell of damp earth and wild herbs. The river is a choning, powerful ribbon of green and white water, carving its way through the volcanic rock. This river is the reason ANI was built here in the first place. It provides a formidable natural defense on one side of the city, a deep, impassable moat. You and the others make your way to a spot where a small, clear stream, a tributary from the highlands, flows into the main river. You don't take water directly from the Kurian. Its current is too strong and its water is full of silt. This small stream is the source of your drinking water. You kneel on the smooth, mossy rocks and dip your jug into the shockingly cold, clear water. As you wait for your jug to fill, you look at the cliff face across the river. It's riddled with the dark, gaping mouths of caves, the troglodyte village you saw from your window. From here, you can see the true extent of it: hundreds of caves, some single chambers, others complex, multi-room dwellings connected by precarious ledges and rock-cut stairs. This cave city is, in many ways, older than ANI itself, the remnant of a more ancient way of life. The history of this cave ANI is a subject of much speculation in local folklore. Were they early Christian hermitages, refuges during times of invasion, or simply the homes of the region's original inhabitants before the great city was ever built? The truth is likely a combination of all three. What's most poignant now is that the relationship between the stone city on the plateau and the cave city in the gorge seems to be reversing. As the great city dies, the ancient caves remain, a silent, enduring presence. The rumor that people are moving back into them might not be so far-fetched. It represents a return to a simpler, more primitive, and perhaps more sustainable way of life. With your jugs full and impossibly heavy, you begin the ascent. This is the true test. You lean into the slope, your back and leg muscles screaming in protest. Every step is a careful, calculated effort. The weight of the water seems to pull you back down the cliff. You have to stop every few minutes to catch your breath, your heart pounding in your chest. This daily struggle for water is a powerful symbol of its decline. A city's greatness can be measured by its ability to provide for its citizens, to make life easier and safer. The aqueducts were a testament to its peak. This grueling, daily climb is a testament to its fall. The city can no longer provide this most basic necessity. Its citizens are forced to revert to the simple, hard labor of their ancestors. Finally, you reach the top, panting and sweating, your arms trembling with fatigue. You pause and look back down at the river, a distant, shimmering line. You have brought the water of life back up to the city of death. You place the jugs down for a moment and look at your hands. Read and draw from the rough clay handles. This is the new reality. The easy grandeur is gone, replaced by a simple, stark, and exhausting struggle for survival. After the exhausting trip to the river, you need a period of rest. You decide to seek out a place of deep quiet, a place that embodies a different kind of loss, not the loss of commerce or infrastructure, but the loss of knowledge and art. You make your way to a small, secluded monastery nestled in a protected corner of the city walls. This was once a renowned center of learning and manuscript production. The monastery is a modest complex, built around a small, tranquil courtyard. It consists of a simple, elegant church, a refectory, and a building that housed the monks' cells and, most importantly, the scriptorium. As you enter the courtyard, the silence here feels different from the empty silence of the streets. It's a contemplative, peaceful silence, the echo of centuries of prayer and study. The monks are gone. The last few, old and frail, left several years ago, returning to the mother monastery in a distant, more secure province. No new novices had arrived in decades. The tradition had simply withered and died. Now, a single caretaker, an elderly man paid a pittance by a distant bishopric, looks after the property, keeping it from falling into complete ruin. He nods to you as you enter, his face a mask of serene resignation. You are not here to visit the church. You are here for the scriptorium. You walk to the building on the far side of the courtyard and push open the heavy wooden door. The room you enter was once the intellectual heart of ANI. It is a long, well-lit hall with large windows facing south to catch the best of the daylight. Along the walls are the remains of what were once desks or lecterns, where the monk-minus scribes would have sat, hunched over their work for hours on end. The air in here smells of old parchment, dry dust, and the ghost of ink. This room was a factory of knowledge. Here, monks meticulously copied the Gospels, theological texts, and histories. They were not just scribes. Many were brilliant artists, masters of the art of manuscript illumination. An illuminated manuscript from ANI was a treasure of the highest order. Its pages filled not just with elegant Armenian script, but with breathtaking miniature paintings of saints, evangelists, and biblical scenes, all rendered in brilliant colors and shimmering gold leaf. These books were Danai's other great export. They traveled almost as far as the silks and spices, sent to churches and wealthy patrons across the Armenian world and beyond. They were symbols of the city's deep piety, its artistic sophistication, and its intellectual vitality. Now, the scriptorium is a hollow shell. The desks are empty. The pots of ink made from oak galls for black, lapis lazuli for blue, and ground minerals for other colors have long since dried up. The precious sheets of vellum, made from painstakingly prepared animal skin, are gone. The room is a silent testament to a lost art. You walk to the far end of the hall, where a single, heavy book lies open on a lectern. It is the monastery's old gospel book, too large and worn to be worth taking when the monks left. It is left open to a page decorated with a full -page portrait of St. Matthew, his face serene, his pen poised over a blank scroll. The colors are faded, and the gold leaf has been picked away in places, but its beauty is still profound. You trace the lines of his robe with your finger, careful not to touch the painted surface. The loss of this tradition is, in many ways, more tragic than the loss of the caravan trade. The trade could return. A new king could rebuild the walls, but the specialized, sacred knowledge of the master illuminators, passed down from teacher to student over generations, is a fragile thing. Once the chain is broken, the art is lost forever. Who now knows the secret of mixing the perfect, luminous blue? Who has the patience and the skill to spend a year creating a single book? The world has changed. The demand for such treasures has dwindled, and the patrons who once commissioned them are gone. This decline in high art and scholarship is a recurring theme in the history of collapsing societies. When the focus shifts from creation and learning to simple survival, the arts are often the first casualty. The resources, the time, and the collective sense of purpose required to produce great art simply evaporate. Historians studying the decline of civilizations often look for this moment, the point at which a society stops producing beautiful, unnecessary things. You notice something on the wall behind the lectern. It's a series of small, faint charcoal sketches. It looks like a master illuminator was practicing a design for a decorative border, a complex interlace of vines and birds. Directly on the wall, it's a ghost of a ghost, the shadow of a work of art that was never completed, a beautiful idea that never found its page. It's an incredibly intimate and poignant sight, a glimpse into the creative process frozen in time. You stand in the silent scriptorium for a long time, the quiet broken only by the cooing of a pigeon that has made its nest in the high rafters. This room feels like a library of burned books. The knowledge is not just gone from the shelves. The very ability to create it has vanished from the world you inhabit. The loss is immense, almost too large to comprehend. It is the sound of a culture's memory fading to a whisper. You leave the hallowed silence of the monastery and make your way back home through the quiet afternoon streets. The physical and emotional exertions of the day, the trek for water, the sorrow of your friend's departure, the melancholy of the empty scriptorium have left you feeling hollow and weary. It is time for the main meal of the day, a meal that is, like everything else in A&I, a study in scarcity and memory. You enter your cool, stone house. A few members of your family are gathered in the main room. Your aging mother, her hands gnarled with arthritis, but still busy mending a torn tunic. Your wife, her face etched with a quiet, constant worry. And your young son, who is playing silently on the floor with a few smooth river stones. The scene is one of domestic peace, but it's a fragile peace, stretched thin over a foundation of anxiety. Today, it is your turn to prepare the meal. You go to your pantry, a small, cool room at the back of the house. The shelves, which in your grandfather's time would have been groaning with sacks of grain, dried fruits, jars of pickles, and cured meats, are now sparsely populated. The sight of them is a constant, low-grade ache. The centerpiece of your meal, as it has been for generations of Armenians, is bread. But the bread you eat now is different from the fine, soft wheat bread of A&I's glory days. The wheat caravans from the west no longer come. Most of the local farmland lies fallow, its farmers having long since fled. What grain you have is coarse barley, which you buy in small, expensive quantities from a farmer who still works a plot of land a day's journey away. You take a small portion of the barley flour, which you ground yourself with a small, laborious hand minus quern, and begin to make the flatbreads. You mix the flour with water and a little salt. There is no leavening, no patient waiting for the dough to rise. This is a simple, unleavened bread of necessity. You cook the thin discs of dough on a hot clay griddle over a small, carefully managed fire. The smell of the toasting barley is nutty and wholesome, but it lacks the rich, complex aroma of leavened wheat bread. The main dish will be a simple soup, a desertion. You put a pot of water on the fire and add a handful of dried, shelled wheat, a grain known as ko or cot. This will simmer for a long time, softening and thickening the water. Into this, you will add the few vegetables you have. Today, it is a single onion and a handful of wild herbs you gathered from the slopes of the gorge. There is no meat. The herds of sheep and cattle that once grazed on the plateau around A&I are long gone, either driven off by raiders or sold by families needing the money to leave. Your protein now comes from lentils and beans, when you can get them. As you chop the onion, you think about the food of the past. You remember the feast days of your childhood, when the tables would be laden with roasted lamb, with dolmies stuffed with spiced rice and meat, with trays of sweet, layered baklava dripping with honey and nuts. These dishes, once a regular part of life, are now the stuff of legend, stories you tell your son about a golden age he will never know. The decline of a city can be measured in its recipes, in the ingredients that are no longer available, in the complex dishes that are simplified until they are a pale shadow of their former selves. Food historians often study these culinary shifts to understand the breakdown of trade networks and the decline in agricultural surplus. Your simple barley bread and onion soup are a direct, edible result of A&I's isolation. The soup simmers, filling the small house with a savory, if simple, aroma. Your wife sets the low wooden table with a few clay bowls and wooden spoons. The dishes are old, from your grandmother's time. One of the bowls has a fine crack running through it, carefully repaired with a resin glue. Like everything in your life, you make do, you repair. You hold on to what you have for as long as you can. One of the few luxuries you still have is salt. The great salt mines of the region are still operational, and salt remains a relatively affordable commodity. You season the soup generously. You also have a small pot of clarified butter, a precious and expensive item you use sparingly, adding a small spoonful to the soup at the very end to give it richness and flavor. This tiny act of adding a luxury ingredient feels like a small act of defiance against the encroaching poverty. The meal is ready. The family gathers around the table. Before you eat, your mother murmurs a quiet prayer of thanks, her voice a soft, papery whisper. You eat in silence. The only sounds the scraping of spoons against the clay bowls. The bread is dense and chewy. The soup is thin but warm and savory. It is not a feast, but it is enough. It is hot. It is nourishing, and you are eating it together. In your home, you look at your son, his cheeks flushed from the warmth of the soup. He is a child of this diminished world. He has no memory of the grand feasts, of the bustling markets. For him, this simple meal is all he has ever known. And a question, sharp and painful, pierces your heart. Is this enough? Is this the future you want for him? A life of barley bread and onion soup, in a city of ghosts? The last spoonful of soup has been eaten, the last piece of barley bread wiped clean across the bottom of the bowl. The simple meal is over, but its quiet weight lingers in the air. The small, temporary comfort of a full stomach has done little to soothe the deeper hunger for security, for a future, You sit at the low wooden table, the empty bowls before you. The fire in the hearth has burned down to glowing embers, casting a soft, warm light on the faces of your family. Your wife is clearing the table, her movements economical and weary. Your mother has picked up her mending again, her needle moving in a slow, rhythmic stitch. Your son, his belly full, is now drowsing in the corner, his head low to one side. In this quiet, domestic moment, the unspoken question that has been a low hum in the back of your mind for months, for years, suddenly becomes a deafening roar. It's a question you have pushed away, a decision you have endlessly postponed, always finding one more reason to stay, one more season to wait and see. You look at your wife's face. You see the deep, permanent lines of worry around her eyes. You see the thinness of her wrists, the slight tremor in her hands as she stacks the clay bowls. She has not complained. She has endured the growing scarcity, the fear of raiders, the departure of her friends, with a quiet, resilient strength. But you see the toll it has taken. You see her hope, once a bright flame, now worn down to a single, stubborn ember, much like the fire in your hearth. You look at your mother. She is the anchor of your family, the living repository of its history. Her roots in this city go deeper than anyone's. Her grandfather helped build the very walls of your house. Leaving A&I, to her, would be like tearing a great tree from the earth. She has always been the most staunch advocate for staying. This is our home, she would say. Our ancestors are buried in this soil. To leave is to dishonor them. But lately, even her resolve has begun to waver. Her pronouncements have become less frequent. Her silence is longer. Tonight, she does not meet your gaze. Her eyes are fixed on her needlework. But you can see that she is not really seeing it. And then you look at your son, sleeping peacefully, his face a mask of innocent trust. He is the future, and what future does he have here? A future of hauling water up a treacherous cliff path? A future of watching his friends leave, one by one? A future of living in the shadow of a glorious past he can never hope to reclaim? The thought is a physical pain. This is the agonizing calculus of decline. It is a slow, emotional process, not a sudden, rational decision. It is a battle between memory and hope, between loyalty to the past and duty to the future. Every family that remains in A&I is having this same silent, internal debate. The decision to leave is a profound act of betrayal, a betrayal of your home, your history, your ancestors. But the decision to stay is beginning to feel like a different kind of betrayal, a betrayal of your children. Historians who study societal collapse often focus on the large scale push and pull factors: economic decline, environmental change, external threats. But the final decision is always made at this intimate, human level. It's made in a quiet room, after a simple meal, when a father looks at his son and realizes that love requires him to leave. You look around the room, at the familiar stone walls, at the carved wooden chest that has been in your family for a century, at the faint, smoky smell that is the unique scent of your home. The thought of leaving it all behind, of becoming a refugee with nothing but what you can carry on your back, is terrifying. The world outside A&I is uncertain and dangerous. There are no guarantees of a better life elsewhere. There is only the certainty of a slow, inexorable decline if you stay. Your wife finishes her task and sits down opposite you. She says nothing, but she raises her eyes to meet yours, and in her gaze, you see it. She has reached the same conclusion. Her quiet strength has finally reached its limit. Her last ember of hope for A&I has been extinguished. She is ready. The decision is made. You don't say the words out loud. You don't need to. In the silent language of a family that has weathered too much, the understanding passes between you. It is a moment of profound, shared sorrow, but also of a strange, frightening relief. The long period of indecision is over. The endless internal debate has finally been settled. You will leave. The word hangs in the silent space between you, invisible but immensely powerful. It is a word that will change everything. Your life in the city of 1,000 churches is over. They knew. Uncertain life on the road is about to begin. The ghost city will soon have one less family to haunt. The sun rises on a new kind of day. Yesterday morning, you awoke to a city of ghosts, a place of quiet, lingering memory. This morning, you awaken in a tomb of your own making. The decision to leave, made in the silent communion of the night, has changed the very air in your home. The familiar stone walls no longer feel like a sanctuary. They feel like a cage you must escape. The cherished objects are no longer comforts. They are anchors you must cut. The sorrowful work begins after a meager breakfast of yesterday's bread. There are no words. Your wife and mother move with a grim, silent purpose. You open the great, carved wooden chest that has sat in the main room for as long as you can remember. It is made of dark, heavy walnut, and the lid groans open, releasing the faint, sweet scent of cedar and old linen. This chest has held the trousseau of 3 generations of brides and the swaddling clothes of a dozen babies. It is the family's heart. Now, you must tear the heart out. You begin to sort life into 2 piles. The first pile is for the future. The second is for the past. The process is a brutal, heart-minus wrenching triage. Into the future pile go the absolute essentials. 2 heavy woolen blankets for the cold nights on the road. A small copper cooking pot, your best one. A few clay bowls and wooden spoons. The sharpest of your knives and your flint and steel. The clothes on your back and 1 change of sturdy tunics each. The pile is shockingly, terrifyingly small. It is a pile for refugees, not for a family. The past pile grows with agonizing speed. In it goes the beautiful, heavy ceramic water jug with the painted blue flowers, too fragile and cumbersome for the road. The extra blankets, the spare pots, the carved wooden stools, the children's old clothes that your wife had been saving, though for what, she no longer knew. Each item you place on this pile feels like a small death, a severing of a memory. This is the archaeology of your own life. And you are the one creating the ruins. One day, someone might find these things and wonder about the people who left them behind. They will debate the reasons. Was the departure hasty? Was this subject not valued? They cannot know that every piece in this pile is valued, that every piece is a heartbreak. Then you confront the immovable objects, the great anchors of your settled life. In the corner of the room stands your wife's loom. It is a magnificent, heavy Midas timbered thing, passed down from her mother. On it, she has woven the cloth that clothed your family and the beautiful tapestries that once brought a little extra coin. It is a part of her, an extension of her hands and her artistry. It cannot be moved. It is too large, too heavy. To leave it is to leave a part of her soul behind. She runs her hand over its smooth, worn frame one last time, her face a mask of stoic grief. The loom is added to the pile of the past. Your mother brings you a small, cloth-minus wrapped bundle. She unwraps it to reveal a small, painted icon of the Virgin Unchild. The paint is faded. The wood is dark with age. It is her most precious possession. It weighs almost nothing. It goes into the future pile. Your son comes to you, clutching a small, crudely carved wooden bird, a toy your father made for you when you were his age. It is worthless. It is essential. It goes into the future pile. You learn quickly that what you carry is not determined by monetary value, but by the weight of the soul. This agonizing process is the subject of much quiet discussion among those who study the end of cities. When a society collapses, what do people save? The evidence suggests a pattern you are now living. People abandon the heavy symbols of their prosperity, the large furniture, the productive tools like your wife's loom, the big storage jars. They take the small, the portable, the sacred, and the sentimental. The final archaeological record of a home is often a record of what was too difficult or not precious enough to carry on one's back. It is a museum of heartbreaking choices. By midday, the sorting is done. The great chest is now mostly empty. Your home feels hollowed out, a mere shell. The life you have lived is now divided into two stark piles on the floor. One is a life to be remembered. The other is a life to be carried. You look at the pitifully small collection of items that represents your entire future. The sheer, terrifying vulnerability of your situation settles upon you like a physical weight. Your ties to this city, to this home, are almost severed. Now, you must face the world outside its walls, with the agonizing task of sorting your life into piles complete. A heavy stillness falls over the house. The air is thick with unspoken grief. To escape the oppressive silence, you find yourself wandering out, drawn towards the edge of the city, towards the deep, dramatic gorge of the Rian River. You need to see the city as broken connection to the world, to steel yourself for your own journey. You walk to a point on the cliff's edge that offers a clear view of what was once one of Ani's proudest structures, the Great Bridge. Even in its ruin, it is an impressive sight. The bridge was a masterpiece of medieval engineering, a single, elegant arch of stone that spanned the churning river far below, connecting Ani to the trade routes that led east. It wasn't just a bridge, it was a grand statement, the primary gateway for the caravans of the Silk Road. Now, the gateway is shattered. The great arch collapsed centuries ago, likely in an earthquake long before the big one of 1319. What remains are the two massive stone abutments on either side of the gorge, like two arms reaching for each other across an impassable divide. They are monuments to a connection that no longer exists. On your side, the stonework is clearly Armenian, precise and elegant. On the far side, the style is slightly different, showing the influence of the neighboring cultures. The bridge was, quite literally, a meeting point of civilizations. You stand and stare at the ruin. The wind howls up from the gorge, a mournful, lonely sound. The bridge has been broken for so long that no one in Ani has a living memory of crossing it. It exists only in stories, a feature of your city as mythology. Your grandfather told you that the bridge was a bustling thoroughfare, wide enough for two laden camels to pass each other. He spoke of the watchers that once stood at either end, manned by city guards who collected tolls and protected the caravans. The collapse of this bridge is a perfect, brutal metaphor for Ani's fate. A city built on its connections to the wider world cannot survive when those connections are severed. The broken bridge is the most literal and powerful symbol of Ani's isolation. It speaks of the lost trade, the vanished caravans, and the end of the city's role as a great intermediary. Historians and engineers of the future will marvel at the ambition of this bridge. They will study its remains and debate the techniques used to construct such a massive single span over such a difficult terrain. Was it a single arch, as the legends say, or a more complex structure? The physical evidence is scant, lost to the river and time, leaving room for endless speculation. It exists more powerfully in the imagination than it does in reality. As you look at the broken abutments, you notice something else. The rock face below the bridge on both sides is pocked with the dark openings of man-made caves. The gorge is not just a natural barrier. It's a vertical landscape that has been inhabited for millennia. This cave city seems to mock the broken grandeur of the stone bridge. The simple, troglodyte dwellings, carved with basic tools, have endured, while the great feat of engineering lies in ruins. It's a humbling lesson in permanence. The earth endures. The ambitions of man, written in stone, are fleeting. The broken bridge also represents a personal, psychological barrier. For as long as you have lived, the world beyond the gorge has been just that, another world. Distant, inaccessible, almost mythical. The river is a physical and mental boundary. To leave Ani, you won't cross a bridge. You will have to travel north or south, following the river for miles to find a safe ford. A long and arduous detour. Your journey will begin not with a confidence tried across a proud bridge, but with a humble, difficult search for a simple crossing. The sense of being cut off is a powerful force in the city's decline. The world has moved on, and ANI has been left behind on the wrong side of a broken bridge. The flow of new ideas, new people, and new wealth has been stanched. The city has been left to stagnate, to feed on its own memories, until even those have grown thin. You stand at the cliff's edge, the wind whipping at your cloak. You look at the two stone arms, reaching for each other in a gesture of eternal, unfulfilled longing. It is a heartbreaking, beautiful sight. You are about to join the ranks of those who have left, to find your own way across the river, to leave the city of broken connections behind you. Your own life, like the bridge, is about to be shattered into a before and an after. And you know, with a deep and sorrowful certainty, that there will be no way back. From the melancholy vantage point of the broken bridge, you turn your gaze back toward the city itself. You feel a sudden, powerful urge to see it all one last time, not from the narrow perspective of its streets, but from above, as a whole. You begin the long, slow climb up the winding path that leads to the citadel, the ancient fortress heart of ANI. The citadel, or Mid-JNABRD, sits on the highest point of the rocky plateau, a defensible acropolis within the already well-defended city. The path up is steep, and the stones are worn and uneven. As you climb, you pass the ruins of what was once the palace of the bag-headed kings, the rulers who presided over ANI's golden age. Now, only a few crumbling walls and the ghostly footprint of its foundations remain. The kings are long gone, their dynasty a distant memory, their palace a playground for lizards and weeds. You finally reach the summit and walk to the edge of the great citadel walls. These are the innermost, oldest defenses of the city. From here, the view is breathtaking and heart-wrenching. The entire city of ANI is laid out before you like a map of your life, a landscape of memory and loss. You look down upon the sprawling city, nestled within its massive outer walls, the famous double walls of ANI, built by King Smbidii in the 10th century, are one of the great marvels of medieval military architecture. From here, you can see their immense, scaly thick inner wall punctuated by dozens of semicircular towers, and a lower, outer wall creating a deadly chilling ground in between. They form a formidable crescent, protecting the city on its landward side, while the deep river gorge guards the rest. These walls were once the symbol of ANI's strength and security. They repelled invaders and gave the citizens a sense of invincible permanence. Now, they feel like the walls of a beautifully crafted prison, enclosing a dying population, keeping the world out, but also keeping the ghosts in. You can see sections where the walls have crumbled, the dark, tough stone fallen away, leaving gaps that no one has the resources or the will to repair. The city shield is broken. From this high vantage, the city's layout becomes clear. You see the main avenues radiating out from the center, the dense warren of residential streets, the open spaces of the marketplaces. And everywhere, the churches. Their conical domes and vaulted roofs punctuate the sea of smaller buildings like islands. You can identify them from here, each one a familiar landmark. There is the great, wounded cathedral. There is the elegant Church of the Redeemer, its massive rotunda famously split in half by a lightning strike, another of God's seeming warnings. There is the small, sturdy Church of St. Gregory of the Bugham Rents, one of the oldest in the city. The sheer number of religious buildings is a source of constant debate for historians. Why did ANI have so many churches? Some argue it was a form of competitive piety among the city's wealthy merchant families. To fund the construction of a church was a way to display both your devotion and your immense wealth, a permanent monument to your family's name. Others see it as a reflection of the city's deep-seated faith, a genuine and profound spiritual fervor that expressed itself in stone. Looking down at the forest of domes, you feel it was likely both. It was a city that worshipped both God and commerce, and saw no contradiction between the two. You let your gaze drift beyond the walls, to the high, empty plateau that surrounds the city. This land was once covered with thriving suburban villages, with lush gardens and orchards, with fields of wheat and barley. Now it is a vast, windswept grassland, empty save for the scattered ruins of a few farmhouses and the faint, ghostly outlines of ancient fields. The city's agricultural heartland has withered, another reason for its slow starvation. This view, from the top of the citadel, is one of immense and tragic beauty. The golden stone of the buildings, the deep green of the river gorge, and the vast, pale blue of the sky create a palette of stark, magnificent colors. It is easy to see why your ancestors chose this place, why they poured so much of their wealth and artistry into building a capital worthy of their kingdom. But the beauty is a mask for the decay. From here, you cannot hear the unsettling silence of the streets. You cannot see the despair in the eyes of the few people who remain. You can only see the grand, beautiful skeleton of a city. It is a view that is both majestic and deeply deceptive. It is the eye of legend, not the eye of your daily reality. You stay on the wall for a long time, the wind cold and sharp against your face. You are trying to burn this image into your memory, to take the whole of it with you when you leave. This is your final survey, your last moment as a citizen looking down upon his home. Tomorrow, you will be on the other side of those walls, looking back, and the city will look very different from there. You descend from the citadel, your heart heavy with the grand, tragic vista of the dying city. As you near the bottom of the hill, you decide on one last, strange detour. Instead of heading back to your own stone house, you find yourself drawn again to the edge of the gorge, to a place that feels like in its shadow self the cave dwellings. You take the same steep path you used to fetch water, but you don't go all the way to the river. About halfway down, a narrow, precarious ledge branches off, leading to the first of the cave openings. This is the entrance to the vertical city, the warren of caves carved into the soft volcanic tuff of the cliff face. Stepping from the open air onto the ledge is like entering another world. The sounds of the wind in the open space are replaced by a close, earthy quiet. The air is cool and smells of damp stone, ancient dust, and the faint, lingering scent of 1,000 long-minus extinguished fires. You step into the first cave chamber. It's a small, rounded room. Its walls and ceiling are rough, dark brown, stained by the smoke of ancient hearths. The floor is uneven, worn smooth in places by the passage of feet. A small opening, a window of sorts, has been carved through the rock, offering a dizzying view of the gorge below. This is not like the grand, planned architecture of the city above. This is an organic, almost animal-minus, like architecture, a network of burrows dug into the earth. You move from one chamber to the next, sometimes through low, narrow tunnels that force you to stoop, sometimes across open ledges that make your stomach lurch. Some of the caves are simple, single rooms. Others are complex, multi-minus level apartments with different chambers for sleeping, cooking, and storage, all connected by an intricate network of rock-minus cut stairs and passages. The people who carved these spaces were masters of their craft. You see small niches carved into the walls for holding oil lamps. There are stone benches, platforms for sleeping, and even small, tip-minus-like hearths for fires. In one of the larger cave complexes, you find what was clearly a church. The space has been carved into the shape of a proper chapel, with a nave, an apse, and even a raised altar, all sculpted from the living rock. Faint, ghostly traces of frescoes, now almost completely gone, still cling to the damp walls. The existence of these cave dwellings is one of Anna's most peculiar and debated features. Who lived here, and when? Some scholars believe they are the oldest part of the settlement, crediting the stone city on the plateau by centuries. They were the homes of Anna's original inhabitants. Others suggest they were primarily used as hermitages for ascetic monks seeking solitude, or as emergency shelters for the city's population during sieges. The truth is likely a mix of all these things. their use changing over the centuries. What you are witnessing now is a new, sad chapter in their history. As you move deeper into the network, you see signs of recent occupation. In one chamber, there is a small, carefully swept pile of ash in the hearth, ash that is only a few days old. In another, you see a frayed piece of woolen blanket tucked into a sleeping niche. The rumors are true. Some of it is poorest, most desperate families, unable to maintain their crumbling stone houses in the city above, have moved down here. They have abandoned the glorious, dying city of stone for the primitive, enduring city of earth. It is a profound, symbolic reversal. They have chosen the ancient, subterranean way of life over the failing civilization on the plateau. It is a return to the very origins of the settlement, a retreat from a failed future back into a deep, dark past. You do not encounter anyone. The current inhabitants, if they are here, remain hidden, perhaps wary of strangers, or perhaps they are simply out for the day, foraging for firewood or food. The silence is profound, but it is a different silence from that of the empty merchant's palace. This is a silence of hiding, of poverty, of a life lived at the absolute margins. You stand at one of the cave windows, looking out across the gorge. You can see your city, day and eye, gleaming in the afternoon sun. From here, it looks magnificent, powerful, eternal. It seems impossible that a citizen of that golden city would choose to live in this dark, damp hole in the rock. But you know the truth. The golden city is an illusion. It is a beautiful shell, but it is cold and empty. This cave, for all its primitive squalor, is a place of shelter. It offers a basic, animal-minus level security that the grand houses above no longer can. You turn and make your way back out of the labyrinth of caves, emerging from the earthy darkness into the bright, open air. The experience has shaken you. The sight of the city's slow decay was a sorrowful thing, but the sight of this desperate, backwards migration is something more unsettling. It is a sign that the very idea of ANI, the very concept of the city, is failing. It is not just the buildings that are crumbling, but the social fabric itself. The afternoon light is turning a deeper shade of gold as you make your way back into the heart of the city. The unsettling visit to the caves has left you with a profound sense of dislocation. The decision to leave is no longer just a sad necessity. It feels like an urgent escape. There is one last duty you feel compelled to perform, one final ritual of farewell to the spiritual life of your community. You head towards your own small parish church for the evening service. This is not one of the grand, famous churches of ANI. It is not the cathedral, nor the Church of the Redeemer. It is a small, humble neighborhood chapel tucked away on a side street. It is a simple, single-minus nave church with a small, sturdy bell tower. It is the church where you were baptized, where you were married, and where you have marked the passing of the seasons and the feast days of the saints for your entire life. It is, in many ways, more your spiritual home than the magnificent, impersonal cathedral. As you approach, you hear the sound of the church bell, but it is not the joyous, resonant peal that once called the whole neighborhood to worship. It is a slow, hesitant, lonely toll, as if the bell itself is tired. You push open the familiar, heavy door and step inside. The interior is small and intimate. The air is thick with the smell of old incense and melting beeswax. The light is dim, provided by a few flickering candles that cast dancing shadows on the stone walls. In the past, on an ordinary weekday evening, this small chapel would have been filled with your neighbors. Now, the space is mostly empty. You see a handful of other worshippers, a sparse and lonely congregation. There is old Varden, the potter you saw this morning, his hands clasped in prayer. There are two elderly sisters, widows who have lived next to the church their entire lives. Their faces a web of pious wrinkles. There is a young mother with a sleeping baby in her arms, including you and your own family, who arrived shortly after. There are perhaps a dozen people in a church built to hold 100. This is what remains of your community. The priest, Father K, stands before the altar. He is an old man, his back bent, his white beard stained yellow from years of incense smoke. His vestments, once rich and colorful, are now faded unfrayed at the edges. His voice, when he begins the liturgy, is a frail, tapery whisper, and yet it fills the small, silent space with a timeless authority. He chants the ancient prayers in classical Armenian, the sacred language that you understand in your heart more than in your head. The familiar, melodic words are a deep comfort, a connection to a faith that stretches back 1,000 years before the city was even built. The liturgy is the same one your grandfather heard, and his grandfather before him. It is a thread of continuity in a world where everything else is coming apart. You join in the responses, your voice mixing with the few others, creating a sound that is thin and fragile, yet deeply heartfelt. You look around at the faces of the other worshippers in the flickering candlelight. You see in their eyes the same mixture of devotion, sorrow, and exhaustion that you feel in your own heart. They are here not out of habit, but out of a deep, desperate need for solace, for a moment of connection to something eternal in a world that feels so very temporary. This dwindling congregation is a scene being repeated in churches all across ANI. It is the spiritual equivalent of the empty marketplace. The city's soul is shrinking along with its population. One of the great unanswered questions for historians of ANI is what happened to the clergy. Did they leave with their flocks? Were they among the last to go, staying out of a sense of duty until the very end? The records are silent. The story of men like Father K, who chose to minister to a dying city, is largely unwritten. As the service nears its end, Father K gives a short sermon. He does not speak of the city's troubles, of the departures, of the fear. To name these things would be to give them more power. Instead, he speaks of faith, of perseverance, of the eternal promise of salvation. His words are simple, ancient comforts, a balm for a wounded community. But as he speaks, you notice his hands are trembling. His voice, for a moment, cracks with an emotion he cannot conceal, and you realize that he is not just a priest. He is a man. He is old. He is tired. And he is afraid, just like the rest of you. He is the captain of a sinking ship, offering words of hope while he feels the cold water rising around his own ankles. The service concludes. You and the other worshippers file out, leaving the priest alone in the candlelight. You exchange quiet nods with your neighbors. This small, sad solidarity of the survivors. You have performed your last duty as a member of this congregation. You had said your last prayer in your home church. When you leave ANI, this small, faithful flock will be even smaller. One day soon, Father K will ring his lonely bell, and no one will come. The last prayer will be said, the last candle will be extinguished, and the church, like so many others, will fall silent. You return from the quiet, heartbreaking service at the church, the priest's trembling voice still echoing in your ears. The sun has set, and a deep, star-filled twilight has settled over ANI. Tomorrow, you will leave. The reality of it is a cold, hard stone in your gut. There is one last, personal ritual you feel compelled to perform. The final, secret conversation with the house that has been your only home. While your family makes the final preparations for the journey, bundling the blankets and checking the straps on the leather satchels, you slip away to the back of the house. You find the small, sharp knife you use for carving wood into heavy stone from the street. You go to the exterior back wall of your house, to a spot near the ground that is sheltered from the worst of the wind and rain. The wall is made of large, beautifully cut blocks of the local tough stone. The stone is soft enough to carve, but hard enough to endure. 4 generations, people in ANI have left their marks on these stones across to bless a new home. The initials of a newly married couple. the date of a child's birth. The walls of the city are a living diary, a tapestry of small, personal histories. You are about to add your own final entry. You kneel on the cold ground, the rough stone of the house cool against your cheek. You run your hand over the surface of a large, smooth block, feeling its texture, its history. This stone has been here for 200 years. It has witnessed the birth of your grandfather and the death of your father. It has absorbed the summer sun and the winter frost. It has felt the vibrations of invading armies and the tremor of the great earthquake. It is not just a stone. It is a silent, enduring member of your family. With the tip of your knife, you begin to carve. The process is slow and difficult. You have to press hard, using the heavy stone in your other hand to tap the back of the knife, like a stonemason with a chisel and mallet. Tap, tap, tap. The small, repetitive sound is sharp and clear in the quiet evening. Each tap is a small act of defiance against the oblivion that is swallowing your city. What do you carve? This is a question that archaeologists of the future will ponder endlessly when they find these humble inscriptions, known as khachkars in their more elaborate form, or simply as graffiti. These marks are a profound source of information about the lives of ordinary people, but they are often enigmatic. You do not carve your full name. That feels too formal, too final. Instead, you carve your initials, a simple, personal mark. Next to them, you carve a small, simple cross, not the ornate, flowering cross of the great stone monuments, but a simple intersection of two lines. It is a prayer, a plea for protection on the dangerous road ahead, and a final affirmation of your faith. And then, you hesitate. You want to add something more, a message to the future, to whoever might find this house, this stone. You think about carving the date, but the date feels meaningless. Time in and I has lost its shape. You think about carving a word, like farewell or remember, but the words feel inadequate, too small for the magnitude of your sorrow. Instead, you carve a single, simple image, a bird, a swallow, with its wings outstretched, in mid-minus flight. The image is crude, the lines shallow and uneven. You are not a master carver, but the meaning is clear, at least to you. It is a symbol of departure, of migration. It is a symbol of the soul taking flight from a home that can no longer shelter it. It is a symbol of hope, however fragile, for a new life, a new nest, somewhere over the horizon. This act of carving is deeply personal, almost primal. It is a way of saying, I was here, my family lived here, we mattered, and a city that is being erased. This small, permanent mark is an act of resistance. It is a refusal to disappear without a trace. You are leaving a tiny piece of your story embedded in the stone, a message in a bottle cast into the great, deep ocean of time. You finish your carving and run your fingers over the fresh cuts. The lines are sharp against the smooth, weathered surface of the old stone. You brush away the dust. In the faint starlight, your mark is barely visible, a secret between you and the house, but it is there. It will remain. It will endure the sun and the snow and the wind. It may be 100 years, or 1,000, before another human being sees it, but you have left your witness. You stand up, your knees stiff from kneeling on the cold ground. The carving is done. Final goodbye has been said. Now, there is only one thing left to do before you can turn your back on this house forever. You must put out the fire. You walk back into the house, the cool night air clinging to your clothes. The interior is stark and bare now. The few bundles and satchels that represent your entire worldly possessions are neatly stacked by the door, ready for the morning's departure. The space, once a home, now feels like a temporary campsite, a place of transit. Your family is gathered in the center of the room, their faces illuminated by the soft, warm glow of the last embers in the hearth. The fire, which has been the heart of your home for as long as you can remember, is now dying, and it is your duty, as the head of the household, to extinguish it for the last time. This is more than a practical chore. It is a ritual freighted with immense symbolic weight. The hearth fire, the crag, is the center of the Armenian family. It is a sacred, living thing, a continuous flame that connects the generations. A new bride would traditionally carry an ember from her father's hearth to light the fire in her new home, ensuring the continuity of the family's spirit. To intentionally extinguish this flame is an act of profound finality. It is the definitive severing of your connection to this place. You kneel before the hearth. The stones are warm, radiating a gentle, comforting heat. You have knelt in this exact spot thousands of times to warm your hands on a cold morning, to tell stories to your son, to watch the mesmerizing dance of the flames. The hearth is the altar of your domestic life. The embers glow a deep, pulsating red, like the slow heartbeat of a dying animal. A few tiny, blue flames still flicker and dance over the surface of the charcoal. You watch them for a long moment, mesmerized. This fire was kindled from the embers of the fire your father tended, which was in turn kindled from his fathers before him. It is a direct, unbroken lineage of warmth and life stretching back through time. You are about to break that chain. You take the small clay water jug you use for cooking and pour a little water into your cupped hand. You don't douse the fire with a great splash. That would be a violent, disrespectful end. You perform the act with a slow, deliberate reverence. You let the water trickle from your fingers onto the embers. The first drops hit with a sharp hiss. A small puff of steam rises, carrying the scent of wet ash and hot stone. CCSSS. The sound is like a final, sad exhalation. One of the red embers darkens, turning a dead, blood black. You pour another handful of water. More hissing, more steam. Another section of the glowing heart goes dark. The small blue flames sputter and die. You continue this process, slowly, methodically, until all the embers are extinguished. The last glowing reed eye winks out, and the hearth is plunged into darkness. The room is suddenly colder. The warm, living light is gone, replaced by the thin, cold, silvery light of the moon coming through the window. The silence that follows the hissing of the steam is absolute and profound. It is a dead silence, the silence of a tomb. The heart of your home has stopped beating. This moment is the true point of no return. As long as the fire was alive, some part of your family's spirit remained in this house. Now, it is just a shell of stone, empty of warmth and life. The psychological impact of this act is something that is difficult for modern people to grasp. We are used to transient lives, to moving from house to house. For you, this house is not just a building. It is the vessel of your family's identity. Extinguishing the hearth is like erasing your name from the book of this city. This act is mirrored in the historical and archaeological record of declining settlements. Archaeologists often find hearths that have been deliberately and carefully cleaned out, a sign of an orderly, planned departure rather than a hasty flight. This final, ritual act of closure speaks to a deep human need to leave a place with dignity, to perform the proper rites of farewell even in the face of disaster. Your wife lets out a soft, stifled sob in the darkness, the first sound to break the heavy silence. You reach out and take her hand. Your mother murmurs a quiet prayer, her words a barely audible whisper. Your son, woken by the sudden chill, shuffles over and leans against you, seeking comfort. You remain kneeling before the cold, dark hearth for a long time. The four of you a small, huddled island of shared grief in the dark room. There is nothing left to do here. There are no more rituals to perform, no more goodbyes to say. The house is now just a collection of stones. Your home is now only what you can carry in your hands and in your hearts. The night will be long and cold. You will not sleep in your beds, but huddled together in your cloaks by the door, like travelers waiting for a dawn that feels both too far away and too close. The final act is done. All that remains is the walking away. The dawn arrives, not with a gentle blush, but as a cold, gray, unforgiving light. It filters through the window of your now -4 house. illuminating the dust motes hanging in the still air and the stark reality of your bundled possessions by the door. There was no real sleep, only a long, fateful doze, punctuated by the shivers of the cold and the heavy weight of what this day holds. It is time. You rise, your body stiff and aching. Without a word, you and your family begin the final preparations. You eat the last of the barley bread and drink a little water. It is a meal of pure function, tasteless and joyless. Your wife hoists a large bundle of blankets and clothes onto her back, the straps digging into her shoulders. Your mother, frail but resolute, takes a smaller satchel containing the precious icon, a few pieces of dried fruit, and a water skin. You take the heaviest load, a large leather pack containing the cooking pot, the remaining food, and your tools. Your son, his face pale and his eyes wide with a confusion that breaks your heart, is given a small bag with his own spare tunic the little wooden bird. He clutches it tightly in his hand. You are now a family of refugees. Your identities as citizens of ANI, as homeowners, as members of a community, have been stripped away, leaving only this essential, mobile unit. You unbar the door for the last time. The sound is a dull, hollow thud. You step out into the street, and for a moment, you don't pull the door shut behind you. You all turn and look back into the dark, empty space of your home. The cold hearth, the bare floors, the ghosts of 100 years of laughter and tears. This is the last image you will have of it. You pull the door closed, and the definitive click of the latch seals a chapter of your life forever. You begin to walk. Your steps feel unnaturally loud on the silent stones of your street. Each corner you turn is a fresh wave of memory. There is the small square where you played as a child. There is the fountain, now dry, where you first met your wife. There is the doorway of the Kirikosian house, now shuttered and silent. The city is no longer your home. It is a museum of your own past, and you are walking through its final, heartbreaking exhibition. Your path leads you towards the city's main gate, the one known as the Lion Gate for the powerful relief of a lion carved into its exterior wall. This is the main artery leading out of the city to the west, the road to the world. It's the same road your friends, the Kirikosians, took yesterday. As you walk, you are not entirely alone. You see one or two other families, just like yours, making the same sorrowful pilgrimage. They too are laden with bundles, their faces set in the same mask of grim determination. You do not speak to each other. There is nothing to say. You are all part of the same silent, tragic parade, the final, trickling drops of life bleeding out of the city. The sheer physical effort of walking with your heavy pack is grueling, but it is also a strange mercy. It focuses your mind on the immediate sensations, the bite of the leather strap on your shoulder, the strain in your legs, the need to place your next footstep carefully on the uneven stones. It keeps you from being completely overwhelmed by the grief. This journey out of a dying city is a scene that has been repeated countless times throughout human history. The fall of a city is never just about the collapse of its political or economic structures. It is always, at its core, about this moment, the moment when ordinary people are forced to abandon their homes and walk into an uncertain future. Archaeologists find evidence of these final departures: the scattered, abandoned belongings in a house, the unburied dead, the layers of ash from a final, destructive fire. But they can only guess at the immense human sorrow of this final walk. You finally reach the Lion Gate. It is a massive, imposing structure, part of the Great Devil Walls. It was built to inspire awe in visitors and fear in enemies. To you, it has always been the symbol of coming home, the final threshold into the safety and familiarity of ANI. Today, it is the opposite. It is the archway to exile. You pass under the great stone arch. The air changes. The sense of enclosure, of being within the city's embrace, is gone, replaced by the wide, open, and intimidating expanse of the empty plateau. You have crossed the line. You are no longer a citizen of ANI. You walk a few hundred paces out onto the road and then, as if pulled by an invisible string. You all stop and turn around. You are now on the other side, and from here, you have one last panoramic view of the city you have left behind. From this vantage point on the open, windswept plateau, Armenia looks different. It is no longer a collection of familiar streets and homes, but a single, majestic, and heartbreakingly beautiful entity. The city lies before you, a golden jewel spread across its rocky peninsula. Its forest of conical domes and towers etched sharply against the pale blue morning sky. The rising sun catches the high walls, the great cathedral, and the thousand other stone surfaces, making them glow with a warmth and life that feels like a cruel lie. This is the view that greeted travelers on caravans for centuries. It is the image of An, that was famous throughout the world, a symbol of power, wealth, and unshakable faith. It is the city of legend, the city of the 1001 churches. And now, you are seeing it as a traveler would, as an outsider. The transition is brutal and instantaneous. Just by walking through a gate, you have lost your claim to it. It is no longer your city. It is just the city. Your family stands beside you, a small, huddled group against the vast, empty landscape. No one speaks. You are all drinking in this final vision, trying to commit every detail to memory. This is the image you will carry with you for the rest of your lives. This is the ghost that will haunt your dreams. You look at your son. He is staring at the city, his small face a mixture of awe and confusion. He is old enough to understand that he is leaving, but too young to grasp the full, crushing weight of what is being lost. For him, this magnificent view is perhaps already becoming a story, a half-remembered dream of a golden city where he once lived. You wonder what he will remember of An by in 10 years, or 20. Will it be the taste of his grandmother's bread, the feel of the cold stone floors, or just this one, epic, silent image? This experience of looking back at a lost home is a universal, timeless human tragedy. It is the story of Lot's wife looking back at Sodom, of the Trojans watching their city burn from the decks of their ships, of every refugee throughout history who has been forced to turn their back on the only world they have ever known. The reasons change: war, famine, economic collapse, but the ache of this final backward glance is eternal. You try to pick out the landmarks. You can clearly see the dark, gaping wound in the roof of the cathedral. You can trace the line of the great double walls, the city's magnificent but failed armor. You think you can just make out the roof of your own house, a single, anonymous dial in a sea of thousands. The thought that your home is still there, empty and silent, waiting for a family that will never return, is almost too much to bear. Historians and archaeologists who study abandoned cities are often faced with the puzzle: why was this specific place deserted? In this case, there is no simple answer. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. The shifting trade routes, the Mongol invasions, the devastating earthquake of 1319, the subsequent raids and political instability all played a part. The city became a place of cascading failures, where each disaster made it harder to recover from the next. The abandonment was not an event. It was a long, slow process of decay, and you are among the final witnesses to its conclusion. You feel a gentle tug on your sleeve. It's your wife. Her eyes are full of tears, but her expression is resolute. It is time to go. There is no more to be gained by standing here, torturing yourselves with what you have lost. The road ahead is long and uncertain, and you must face it. You take one last, long, searing look at the golden city. You breathe in the cool, clean air of the plateau, trying to catch one last, faint scent of the wood smoke from its hearths. You try to hear one last, ghostly echo of its church bells on the wind, but there is only silence. The city of Armenia, your home, has finally become what it will be for the next 700 years: a magnificent, empty, and beautiful ruin. It is a memory carved in stone. With a final, collective effort of will, your family turns away. You turn your backs on the past. You face the west, towards an unknown horizon and an uncertain future. The sun is at your back, casting your long, lonely shadows on the road before you. The journey has begun. You take a step, and then another. The movement is stiff at first, your body resisting this final, irrevocable act of turning away. The great, silent city is at your back now. You do not dare to look over your shoulder again. To do so would be to risk being turned into a pillar of salt, frozen forever by the grief of what is behind you. The road ahead is little more than a dirt track, a faint line stretching across the vast, empty expanse of the Anatolian plateau. The landscape is stark and beautiful, a rolling sea of dry grass under an immense, empty sky. There are no trees, no other travelers,